Good Sunday night. Welcome to another edition of True Story Live. We have a good one for you tonight. The next three shows we're going to do part one of three. Tonight's episode is titled Love Actually Part 1, The Feeling. So that's what we're going to be getting into tonight. The feeling of being loved is at the core of each person born into this world. From an early age, we learn that people use the word love constantly. And they teach you to say, I love you. As we start to experience the different forms of love, we realize that love is deep and strange. The love we feel from and toward parents or family is different than the love we might feel for a friend or a romantic interest. In whatever form love comes, it is important to us all. And we're bombarded with love in songs and movies and books and poems and plays and operas and even the stories from those we know. We're sure to ask any married couple to tell the story of how they met. Our hearts long for love. And why wouldn't they? We're made to experience and be able to show and feel love. That's how we're made. So with all that said, what happens when we fail to find love? So as I mentioned in this series of three shows, we draw an inspiration from God and from Paulo Coelho. I'm not sure that that's the correct pronunciation, but we'll go with that until I know differently. Paulo says, and I quote, "Do not try to explain feelings. Live everything intensely and treasure what you feel as a gift from God." All too often we hear, I feel sad. I feel anger. I feel lost. I feel worthless, etc. Might we consider that we are able to feel at all is a privilege? Is it not each individual that decides whether the glass is half empty or half full? Can we imagine how our existence would be without feelings? Feelings not embraced are lost, are they not? So also regarding the next show, Part 2, Love Actually Part 2, the emotion, we've invited the panel, and now for any other person who wishes to submit a story of love to be read on next week's show. Any topic of love, just something you feel emotional about. Tears will be welcome next week. So for those who prefer to remain anonymous, we shall respect that wish. It promises to be a show out of the box. So welcome all the listeners from Talking Doctrine, and also welcome Matthias. Matthias, how are you tonight, buddy?
I'm doing well, Jason. Tonight's topic sounds very edifying, so I can't wait to get into it. But I'm doing well, and it looks like the chat room's doing well as well.
Oh, good. And that reminds me too, I need to pull that up because this next part is for the chat room. So first of all, guys, we appreciate you coming and listening. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, I got it. Little glitch there, guys. Sorry. So this is for the chat room. I'm addressing the chat room mainly. So we definitely want to involve you guys more in the show, and we've all agreed to do that. And we've been kind of hinting around to it. We talked about it a little bit last show. So for next week's show and on the remaining shows, but next week's show especially, we do want you to send us your love stories for the next show, as I mentioned. So you can do that in two ways. You can send it to, I didn't ask you about this, Matthias, but you get emails that address all the time. So I didn't think you'd have a
no problem at all. I was about to offer it to you, so no problem at all.
Excellent. So talkingdoctrine@gmail.com or my email that I just set up, actually. Yeah, no doubt. So I tried to do True Story Live at Gmail, and that was taken. So the next best thing is truestorylive.crips@gmail.com. So that's my last name, spelled CRIPPS. And I'll just give it to you again one time. This is the first time I've brought it up. So truestorylive.crips@gmail.com. So those are two ways that you can send your stories. And like I mentioned, just reiterating, if you do not want your name said on air, just mention that, and I promise you, I'll keep it anonymous. All right. So that's for next week's show. So if you can get that together for us by Wednesday, we will take late submissions if you are struggling with whether you want to do it or not. But if you could have it to us by Wednesday, we'd be extremely grateful. It gives us more time to figure out where we want to put it within the broadcast, because we do put a lot of work into these now. When we first started out, it was just a couple people. It was kind of like we pick a subject and hope it went somewhere. And now there's way more planning, which is good, and I think it shows in the show that we're doing more. All right. Is there a maximum word count on these stories? No, because they can be read. So it can be as long as you want to. But what we'd like to do is think about, I don't know how many people are going to respond to this. So I would say if you had to tell the story, keep it to about 10 minutes in the amount of time that you could tell. That's a great question. Actually, I'm watching the chat in case anybody, but thank you for doing that, Jen. And also, while the show is going on, if you have any questions, please highlight them as you normally do. Some of you veterans in Talking Doctrine chat know how to highlight the questions so that Matthias can see them. But we do have Steve in the chat room and Jen in the chat room. I am here, but I will not be monitoring it myself. I have to pay attention to other things. So, one of them, if I don't see the question, one of them will let me know if someone has a question pertinent to tonight's show. Okay. All right. Now we do have someone with their hand up, so I'm going to see who this is real quick. Area code 414. Welcome to TSL.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jen. I thought I'd call in.
Hey, Brenda.
Hello. Hey, Matthias. Who else is on there? Is that Steve too?
Hey.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Brenda.
Steve is here.
Hey, Matthias. How are you?
Oh, doing well.
Brenda, are you gonna?
Hey, actually, Brenda, I was noticing somebody in our radio broadcast on Talking Doctrine, in one of their requests, sent us one of your songs. So if we would have not gotten cut off, we would have actually listened to you in our radio program, and it wasn't even you. So it was.
Oh wait, are you talking about from yesterday? The music.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I had to go to bed. It was late.
Well, we got knocked off air, but praise God, the channel is in good standing.
Oh wow!
But we will certainly. When I saw that, I was like, oh, well, I wish I would have thought of that. But next new moon, we'll be broadcasting from the backup channel, Talking Doctrine 2. So just to make sure we stay in good standing. But it's such a it's such a blessing. It's so edifying to listen to God's music together, but to hear you sing it, somebody we fellowship with often, it's awesome, even more awesome. So just
cool.
Thank
you. Sure.
Yep, Brenda's talented, so that'll be a treat when you get to do that. Matthias, how often do you do that show, the new moon?
Well, it's every new moon. So we have
literally by the moon cycle.
By the moon cycle. So the next one is actually going to be after our Sunday broadcast one of our Sunday broadcasts next month, because the new moon is on a Sunday. So
fantastic.
When we stop at 10 o'clock my time, the new moon tunes, but it'll be on the backup channel just in case, but we don't have any problems, as in We have 12 copyright claims, but all they did was put ads on the video, and they like it up there. So, we're gonna keep doing it, just not on the main channel. But it's very. I loved it. I thought it was great because I listened to a lot of songs that I would have never heard before, genres I'm not used to, but because of them glorifying Jesus, I love them. So
that's fantastic. You know, I just saw something. This is. I wish AJ was around where I could ask him this. I just am looking in the studio at the time stamp on here, and it says that I only have 3 minutes and 50 seconds left. On the stream. I have no idea what happened there. Okay, so guys, if it gets cut off, if it gets cut off, then you'll know what happened. And I don't know. I have no way of knowing why it's doing that.
Well, if it gets cut off, maybe we can just go live on your new channel or on Matthias' channel for the duration.
Oh, that'd be great. It's just
Wait, how do you do that?
Just to throw an option out there, just in case.
Okay. We've got it's going to end. I see down at the showtime it says 15 minutes.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's going to end because I noticed the time was off last week, and it didn't end until the 3-hour mark, and then right on the 3-hour mark.
It gave us
right.
Right,
We had
an hour.
right. We had been going for like 45 minutes, and it said we had only been going for 14 on the after hours show. So I noticed the time was off, but it's still right on that 3-hour mark. It still cut us short. So it was going on the real time, even though their time was off.
Okay. Well, I apologize in advance if I can't get it. If it gives us an hour, then what we'll do is we'll just go to the questions, and that'll be what it is. We'll just fill up that hour, and it'll be fine. That's not a problem. I do apologize. I'm sure that I've done this so many times, and I do the same thing every time. So it could be user error. I could have made a mistake, and you do have to pick the amount of minutes for the show, but it's always the same. It's always the same button that gets pushed to 2 hours. It's the same every time. Yeah, it's okay. So we're gonna wait. This is so bizarre. So there's a minute and 20 seconds roughly. So if we're correct, and what normally happens when we have a 2-hour show, it doesn't cut off for an hour. So if that happens, then we'll continue. If not, we'll try a couple things to get. So what would happen? How would that work, Matthias, if we went through your channel for the rest of it? Is there a way to do that or not?
Yes, the only person who it would be new to is Jen. So what we would have to do is get her a Hangouts, or I can get her to call in on my computer. I can do it that way, but it's best. Jen, are you on a smartphone?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it an Android or an Apple?
It's an Apple.
An Apple? All right. So
yeah.
If you'll go to the Play Store and download the Hangouts app. Okay. And then do you have a Gmail account already?
I do, but I do not remember the name of it or the password.
Okay. All right. Well, no. Well, you could start one, truestorylive.jen. You know, like
that's true. Yeah.
So you could get one. Just get one started. It takes what? Not even 5 minutes. So, if we get off if we get knocked off, I'll just shoot you my phone number on Facebook, and I'll talk you through it.
Okay. Awesome.
So we're not recording anymore according to the board. I mean, the time ran out, but it's still broadcasting, right?
Right.
I mean, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is what it did last time. It says we're on air with 15 minutes left now.
Okay.
Yeah.
The thing is that people listening through Blog Talk will not be able to hear it until I end the episode. So I don't know how many people that would affect other than Linda. And maybe a handful of people from Flat Out Grace. But, gosh, you guys have any suggestions? Should I just end it and try to go through your channel, Matthias? Or what do you guys want to do? Because this hasn't happened to me before, so I'm not quite sure.
Did it
we
say
could
3 minutes
we could
before?
stay on here till we could stay on here and set it up while we're talking, and then just switch over.
Yeah.
I'll probably just have to hang up because I'm only on a regular phone.
Right. Well, you're fine.
Oh.
Which is fine.
Right, but you're fine for now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but if I hang up, if it like hangs up, I'll probably just hang up. I'll just go on Talking Doctrine and just chat in there or something.
I gotcha. Well, you
okay, but it's
when you get
it's
your
still
new laptop,
broadcasting.
yeah,
It's broadcasting through you, Matthias, right? They're able to hear me over there on your channel.
Oh yeah.
Can they hear me?
Yes, they can.
Okay. All right. So why don't we just do this? Why don't we start the questions and we'll run them until it runs out, and then we can switch over to the channel as soon as it cuts off. But when it cuts off, there won't be any warning. It'll just cut off. And so, Matthias, if you send me a link over there, I'll get back on with you as soon as I can on that end.
Right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and send you and Steve the links now, so you have them in case it happens. And
okay.
Jen, go ahead and download that app.
I did.
But then, can you get to a computer and get a new Gmail address?
You know what? It's already connected to the one I used for YouTube.
Oh, so you're already in it.
So, yeah, I'm already in it, and I don't know how to navigate it, but.
Awesome. Well, all right. I'll
so
try to.
Call.
Right, I'll try to find you in there.
Phone. Oh, okay.
So technically, we should have, if it does it like it does for the after show that we have, it gives us an hour after the show ends. So either it's 15 minutes or it's an hour, right?
Right.
Either they'll give us an extra 15
right.
minutes before it cuts out, or it's an hour.
Exactly. And actually, I can just put the link in our Facebook group, and then all of you'll have it at the same time. And whenever you push that link, Jen, it'll direct you to the app and right into the call. So,
okay.
So that's perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome.
If anyone is, Brenda, are you online?
Yeah. Yeah.
Will you put something in Flat Out Grace that this happened, and that,
Sure.
and just let everybody know they can go right now if they want to hear what's going on now. They can go listen through Talking Doctrine and let them know how they can do that. Would you be willing to?
Sure, and just post that link, the Talking Doctrine link.
Yeah, to his, yeah, exactly. Copy and paste his the Simulcast link.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so we'll get to the questions then. How about that?
Sounds perfect. Okay. And the link's already in there. So if we go down, just click on that link, guys. You can jump right in.
Sweet. Thank you very much. All right. So question number one, and these questions again are, everyone knows, I think, are from Glenn. He and I work on these together to formulate the, well, he does the questions by himself. I just edit some. But they're his questions for us. And question number 1 is, believers say they feel Christ's love in them. In your human interactions, what part do feelings play, and how might these feelings influence the way you share your love with others? So I'll read it again. Believers say they feel Christ's love in them. That's the first part. In your human interactions, what part do feelings play, and how might these feelings influence the way you share your love with others? Who'd like to take first shot?
Well, I guess I can go. This one is for the main reason that in salvation, feelings are not part of it at all. Emotions are not part of salvation at all. Yes, they accompany different things as people are seeking and searching, but emotions and feelings, it's the most shallow part of man, and God's salvation plan works in the deepest part of his spirit. So there is a difference between the two there. But to answer the question, how do I feel God's love? The way that I feel it the most is in security and assurance, and that when I disobey and he does chastise me, and which gets less and less the older I get in the Lord, but it does bring me even that brings me a sense of security and shows me he loves me. And in that, with feeling and knowing that the creator of all things is that close to me and walking with me, he's carrying me, but not just ignoring it, but really embracing it, able to sort of be a conduit is what I say. It's like we're receiving and giving exactly what we receive, but it's just flowing in and through us. So, the love that we have for so many others, that God loves them through us, is in so many different ways. There's times that we need to be bold and direct and sometimes aggressive. There's other times where we're patient, peaceful, long-suffering, merciful. And really, if we're not walking in the Spirit, if we're the one making that decision, then, and it's not of God, then it does no good. So feeling God's love is a way that somebody who's a non-believer might understand walking in the Spirit, where we just know that we have this love for these people and we want to share the truth with them because there's danger ahead. And it's like seeing a stranger that you about to get hit by a train. You are gonna run. I know it's almost cliche, but it's one of the best examples to give. You love them enough to go grab them and pull them out of the way, and you don't even know their name. And that's that's what even non-believers have. So what about us who have spiritual eyes to see, and it's not a train, it's eternal death? How much more do we want to be that person to run out and grab them and pull them out of the way? But we got to remember that it's God who loves them even more than we do, and we got to just walk in his Spirit. So to answer the question, it's tough because God's love is given and received in many different forms and avenues. It's individual, personal, direct, but it's also something God does through his body, which is each one of us saints or believers. So love shouldn't be in the equation when it comes to salvation, but love is everything, for God is love. So I hope what I said answered the question. It's a tough one. I love these questions because they are tough, but I hope that gave some insight.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they're they're growing in complexity too, Matthias. It's gonna get hard. They're gonna get more complex as we go. You have that to look forward to.
I praise God for it.
Yeah, thank you. Who would like to go next? Steve?
Go for it, Jen.
I'm not ready. My brain kind of hurts right now. I'm trying to. I need to pull.
Brenda, do you want to weigh in on this?
Can you ask the question one more time so I can just think about it? Because I was typing that Facebook post before.
Yes, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing that. So, question number one is: believers say they feel Christ's love in them. In your human interactions, what part do feelings play, and how might these feelings influence the way you share your love with others?
Oh, wow. Ooh, that is a hard one.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's deep.
That's very deep. How about Jason, you do it, and then we'll add on to you after.
Sure. Yeah, so I do feel like we feel Christ's love in us. And as Matthias said, I can't help but agree, but that happens in many different ways throughout our lives. And it's hard to pinpoint what is just a feeling and what is a feeling from God. What is love? What is God's love in us, and what is, just a normal feeling that's not necessarily from God. Feelings are quite similar, and feeling love, obviously we know that the love we feel from God is not the same as romantic love, but I still feel it when I hear what he did for me on the cross, and I know what he went through for me. It touches me in a place that, yes, it is feeling, and I don't think that anyone is saying that the feeling in and of itself is wrong or bad. But what Matthias was trying to make clear is that actually feeling something has nothing to do with salvation itself. And though I agree with that in principle, and Matthias, you also pointed out toward the end that God is love. So a love from the Creator and embodiment of love is completely natural, and I think that we do feel his love in us. As far as human reactions are concerned, I am able to express more love now in my life towards others than I ever have been, except for probably when I was a kid. When I was a kid, everybody was an easy friend. I wanted to just meet everyone I possibly could. And it didn't take much for me to walk up to a stranger and just start talking to them. And that's the way I was when I was a kid. And then I got, kind of covered up by life and just the way I saw other people treating each other and things like that, that I became more reserved. And it wasn't until I believe the point where I asked him to open my eyes towards other people, and he softened my heart again after being closed up for a long time. So I was able to feel love for other people in a different way as well. And I would say that's directly related to how connected to God I am. And God gave us feelings for a reason. And again, we can't always rely on them because sometimes feelings lie. You know, when you meet someone and quote unquote fall in love, and then it falls apart, you go back and question yourself whether it was ever the feeling of love was ever real in the first place. I know I have. So it is an extremely hard question to answer from any direction.
Yeah.
But to simplify it and to capsulize it, I would say that yes, we do feel Christ's love in us as believers. It is an interactive part of His Spirit working in our lives. And if we have that, then yes, we're able to express that love to others. In fact, we're doing what we're supposed to do, which is to it's a fruit. It's a fruit, and it's one of the most important fruits. And it's a gift as well. I mean, it's more importantly, it's a gift. And we're supposed to give that gift to others. Answer to question 1.
That's awesome.
All right. So we have Brenda, Jen, and Steve left. Want to draw straws or?
Well, you know, I was going to chime in and say it can be very confusing because I think there are times where, you know, you read certain scripture that talks about the heart being deceitful, and we connect the heart with feelings. So then feelings sometimes get a bad rap, but I'm kind of with you, Cripps, where even though I was a very feeling and very emotional, sensitive person before I was saved, in a way that was intensified after I got saved, in a good way, just seeing things in a more Christ-like manner, seeing people in a more, I don't even know what the word is, just really seeing people, the best way I can describe it. And I don't know. I think sometimes it can be confusing, but I'm very grateful to God that we have feelings and that we can feel, that we can express those feelings. But again, you have to be careful because they're deceitful. So I'm not really sure how to answer this question. But I do believe, yes, that God created feelings and that it's a blessing to be able to feel. And I've had, you know, parts of my life where I've shut off feelings to certain things. And I don't think that God wants us to do that, you know.
I would agree with that.
I'm still mulling.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, you guys don't have time to think about these questions ahead. And so as we move forward, I mean, it's definitely cool to think about it more. And I think that's the purpose of the questions in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, to make people think about it. You know, we have to, but, you know, I accept that. And of course, I do have some foreknowledge of what the questions are going to be. But, and Matthias, he's stated on more than one occasion that he likes to not have the questions ahead of time because it's a challenge to him. Isn't that right, Matthias?
Well, because it makes me rely on walking in the Spirit. If I have time to even put my own 2 cents into it first, with it, then, and you know, I'm in my flesh. If somebody emailed me the questions, if I had them, it's like looking at the gifts at Christmas before you get them. I would look at them. But that's why I just say don't even send them to me. I don't even want to know, just because I think that's the way that the Lord works best when we aren't in the way. So that's right. That's why I enjoy it.
Yep. I would agree. Brenda, by the way, Brenda, you're still on vacation, so technically I can't make you answer. You know?
Nice. I would say, I think the only thing that comes to mind are the scripture verse. This is like a dumb answer, but the fruits of the Spirit were, love is feelings, as Jen was saying, and you too, Jason. But I also think it's more than just emotional feelings. I'm an emotional person, honestly, and unfortunately, I can rely too much on my emotions, which could be detrimental. So I think that if it's more organic. I think the more we spend in the presence of God, and we have those feelings, but we also don't rely on the feelings as the how do I say it? I can't think. My brain shut off right now.
Well, you're on a roll. You're on a roll.
Yeah, now I just blanked out. For example, like the joy of the Lord. That's not necessarily a feeling. It's happiness is a feeling, but joy is more. What would be a definition of joy? I'm just giving an example.
Knowing our eternal destiny.
Yeah, it's more of like a heart and
knowing
head,
that a feeling.
A knowing. Yeah. So I think there's a difference between the feelings that we would just have when something good happens or something bad happens, but then we have this firm foundation, maybe that's what I'm looking for, of trusting Christ, reaching people, knowing that we are good, because I'm not explaining myself very well. That's the best
I think you are.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Glenn actually kind of reiterated his question a little bit more simple. Do you mind if I read it real quick and it might help?
No, go ahead.
In the chat, he said, my terminology might be loose as a non-believer. It's more asking, does feeling God's love influence the way you treat others?
Oh, well, that's way easy. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It has to. And my answer would be, I mean, I already kind of answered, and you could probably get that from my answer, but in that simplified forms, absolutely, it has to. Because as Matthias mentioned, God is love. Then if you're connected to the vine, and for those people that don't understand that, he's the vine, we're the branches, and we're connected to him, and that also means everything that that he gives through us, like love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, faith, goodness, meekness. I think I'm mixing them all up, but we're supposed to present those in our lives, those fruits. So yes, if we have a relationship with him, we are absolutely we should be able to express those things towards other people.
Right.
Interaction.
Yeah.
We'll see, but I can see it in a way where I'm trying to look at me as a non-believer and then as a believer.
Sure.
And really not much changed. I wanted to share things with people. I was outgoing. I was loving, wanting to be helpful. I wanted to serve people. There were a lot of, I knew, and I was trying to share it with people. Like, there's a lot that I was doing just because it was kind of who I was as a non-believer. And now as a believer, I'm doing the same things, but because I understand them from an eternal view, from a book that's gives me omniscience, understanding at different things. Not saying I'm omniscient, but the understanding I get comes from the omniscient or omniscient.
Right.
I should say.
We know you're not.
Right.
It's okay.
Right. But here's the thing. Now I have the heart of that infinite. I have the mind of him. I have the drive of him. I have the power of him, even the power of the gospel. But when I walk and abide in the Spirit, it's him who's doing it through me. So the same things I was doing before, I was still doing them now, but instead of me doing them, it was him. It's him doing them. And so there's like this amplified, it's like the same me, but it's amplified because it's all powered and driven by God now instead of myself. And I see things in the way he sees them. And when he hurts and he aches, I hurt and I ache. And when he's joyful and is happy, because emotions, he did create them. They're good. We do have them. He is happy with us. and we can be happy with him and his creation of all. But when it comes to emotions for salvation, the fact is that Jesus died on the cross, that the fact is that he was imputed with our sins. The fact is he rose again, and that whoever believes on his name receives his righteousness. Those are facts from the Bible, and it doesn't matter how I feel, good, bad, sad, indifferent. It doesn't matter. Those are the facts, and as long as I believe and rest on them, I'm eternally saved. So that's why I say emotions have nothing to do with facts, are clearly totally different. But to direct it to where Glenn made it simplified, how does God's love change the way that I treat others or interact with others? It doesn't change it. It just amplifies it, because I'm doing the exact same things I was doing when I was a non-believer. But now that even though I've received the righteousness of God, I'm doing the same things, but I'm doing them by the power and the truth of the Word of God. So that's the difference in how I treat people, because not much changed in that aspect, just where it comes from and where it can go. Because before it was all me, now I pray that in my life I make it all him.
Sinful behaviors, and the knowledge that of how much what Christ did, knowing beforehand how horrible at times I would be as his child, he still loved me despite all that. So that understanding allows me to look at others that are also maybe either enslaved in sin or have been saved and fallen back into something, because I understand a lot from both sides, I guess I could say, from the flesh side and from the eyes of God, that seeing me, myself, in his eyes, how much he loved me, despite my failings, despite my sin, allows me to look at others who are also, sinful, wicked, etc., or may even look good on the outside, but inside are are not, haven't been healed internally, and so I can look through all that, knowing how I've been loved, and that allows me to love as Christ, has loved me, to
Sure.
show forth His love to others. And so that's my own take on that. I think that feelings can be involved in the salvation process, but I don't think they have to be. It can be a different experience for each person, but the gospel is still the same. The gospel that saves is still the same. And I wanted to, if I could read a couple verses real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. But we want to try to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is Paul talking about in Rome there was an idol to an unknown god, and he wants to tell him who that unknown god is. And he says, "This is the God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that He is the Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though He needed anything, seeing He giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, and if haply they might feel after Him and find Him, though He be not far from every one of us." So that was my scriptural proof that feelings can guide us toward God, and toward salvation. So I just wanted to put that in there, that I think He does want us to. I think the best way to put it, I think that feelings are a gift from God, as long as they line up with what His Word says is okay for us to feel.
Right. And since this particular episode of True Story Live is literally titled, the by title for it is feeling, so that these questions all relate to that. So we'll move on to question 2. Thank you guys for your answers to question 1. And question number 2, if one comes to God with feelings of personal despair, do you, the panel, say, trust God, it will be all better in the next life? Or if not, what do you say to this person? So if someone comes to God and they're in a state of despair when they're coming to Him, do we as the panel say, oh, just trust God, it'll be better in the next life? Or if we don't have that view, what do we say?
I might have an answer, Jason.
All right, go ahead, Brenda.
I say in that aspect, I would probably ask more questions and listen to what their heart is saying. It's so easy to say, yeah, life will be better, in heaven and eternally. But at that stage of that season of their life where they are in despair or they are depressed, that's more of a detriment than a loving response. So I would just maybe put my arm around them, just pray for them. Maybe just listen to them. That's generally, I guess, what I would do in that situation.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else want to tackle question 2? A little bit easier.
Can you repeat it again, Crips? Do you mind?
Oh, if one comes to God with feelings of personal despair, do you, the panel, say, trust God, it will be better in the next life? Or if not, what do you say to this person?
A lot of times when I'm met with conversations like this, the best advice I can give is from the path that I've already walked in, when it comes to having been in despair many times. And I just would share with them that the despair in my life has kind of shown a spotlight on the fact of how not powerful we are as humans. And I know some people can, you know, disagree with that, you know, because we're human and we have free will and we can do a lot of things.
Sure.
But I don't know, like, I know for despair for me, and we've had this conversation before, has really uncovered God for me personally, uncovered his will, uncovered his power in all the ways that I lack. And I've seen how God has used despair and despairing moments to do many things, to uncover who he is, to uncover his love, to uncover his power, to uncover my weakness and my need for him. It's such an odd thing to, we talked about this earlier today, being grateful for those times of despair. But they just are times that I think God uses in some roundabout way that we may not be able to understand on this earth, that it helps bond us to him. It helps strengthen that relationship. Just like any married couple, when you go through hard stuff, and instead of shutting each other out, when you cling to one another, there's an amazing bond that's created through that. And that same kind of bond and relationship happens with God when we let him, in, when we let him into that moment of despair to help, to guide us, not necessarily always around it. A lot of times it's through it. And it's just, it's quite an amazing experience. And I don't know if that made any sense.
I like it. No, it's sure. You do that a lot. You just say something really, really nice and beautiful. It makes complete and total sense. And you say, oh, I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Did you get that? I don't know.
Oh, no. Hopefully it did.
I get it. It did. Who'd like to go next?
I can go, but can you ask the question one more time? I'm going to listen.
I sure can. Not a problem at all. I know you're working in the chat room, and I appreciate.
No. I'm just trying to be detailed to the question.
Yeah. If one comes to God with feelings of personal despair, do you, the panel, say, trust God, it will be better in the next life? Or if not, what do you say to this person?
Okay. To answer the question directly, I'll, as lovingly and as nice as I can, every situation is different, but I'm going to be trying to work to get to this person. I've been in this situation, so I'm talking from experience, where to let them know that this lifetime is the only heaven they're going to get.
Right.
And even if it's despairing right now, it's the only heaven you're going to get outside of Jesus Christ. It's not going to get better.
Right.
And if there's somebody who's a non-believer and they're coming to God despairing, are they coming to God to get saved? Are they coming to God to get healed? Are they coming to God? What are they coming to God? Now, if they're coming to God to get saved, like they want to know the truth, they're seeking and they're despaired, then what I would tell them is, it sounds like the Holy Spirit's really working on you and you're really understanding what your sin means and how God looks at it. And it's maybe you've even started to see that somebody who didn't deserve it and just took your place because he loved you did that, and it's starting to make sense, and you're being despairing that way. That's a good thing. And don't worry about that. Just, that's, yes, it hurts. It's something we all go through when we come to realize what our sins did to the person, the God who created us. And so that's a natural form of a supernatural process of the supernatural birth. I'm not saying that person is necessarily saved then, but God's revealing some truths to you. If that's why you're despairing, then don't, that's not something to be worried about, but that's something that we all go through. So I would try to talk them through that. I mean, there's so many ways that I can take this question on if they're coming to God, what are they coming to him for? What would I tell them? It depends on if they're a believer or a non-believer. If they're a believer and they're coming to God despairingly, I would tell them that this is the only hell you're going to have. You know, like, it's never going to get any worse than this lifetime. So, you know, the tests and trials that God gives you to lean on him and to persevere through might just be ways to glorify him that bring others to him. So, you know, be happy in this despairing. This is a good thing to be able to, and hey, I'm praying for you and I'm there for you and your burdens are my burdens, but don't think that this despairing that you're in is necessarily something that's not glorifying our Father in heaven. So it really depends on who I'm talking to, the situation at hand. You know, I guess if Glenn, maybe gets a little more direct with, if we're talking about a non-believer, what type of despair. But for a non-believer, I'm not going to tell them the next life is going to be better. They have their best life now. So.
Oh, nice.
But
they have their best life now. Yeah,
exactly. And they'll even buy books trying to get it that way. So.
Oh, sure.
Well,
yeah, it's $1 billion industry, probably, self-help books and all that.
Well, there's a book out there called just that, Your Best Life Now.
Yeah, we know who wrote that.
Yeah, it's it really is a good question, but it's a little too general for me to answer more directly. But I'll gladly do it. Just give me the parameters. But I don't want to go fishing. You know.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and this brings this up, and I know Glenn's listening. I think he is. I'm sure he's in the chat room, but I'm not sure if he got it to work where he is through your channel. Okay, so Jen, you said he is. The problem with originally we named this Ask a Non-Believer, but then, you know, it's like, do we need to keep using the same label and all that? But without the label, then, Matthias, it seems like you don't still understand that he is a non-believer. So if he's asking a question, it is from the perspective, all these questions are from the perspective of a non-believer. We just aren't calling it that. So he's not asking from a Christian perspective. He's only asking from his perspective, which is at this point a non-believer. So if a non-believer comes to God with the feelings of personal despair, then that makes it easier. So we just may need to tighten it up a little bit. I see your point there. Okay, so with the mistake that was made in the programming, we're assuming that we have about 16 minutes left. So I haven't answered question 2 yet. And who else hasn't answered? Steve and Jen?
I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay, so just Steve. Okay, Steve, do you think you could answer number 2 in 3 minutes? Probably not.
Possibly. Can you throw me the question one more time? I think I get it, but I want to hear it one more time.
Okay, if one comes to God with feelings of personal despair, do you, the panel, say, trust God, it will be better in the next life? Or if not, what do you say to this person?
I think I really I think I really liked how Matthias explained that. If I can I think I'll kind of paraphrase off of what he said, that, if this is an unbeliever we're talking about, as good as this life can be, that's all there is to hope for if you are an unbeliever. And whether or not you believe that hell exists or not, there is nothing better than what you have right now. So you could be living a great life and feel like you don't need any more, or you could be feeling like that, like the question, and feeling, despair from divorce or what have you, and
sure,
and feel like, what's the point or anything like that. But as a believer, I would tell that unbeliever, say, hey, look, there's so much better to look forward to, especially if you are in times of turmoil and stuff, or even someone who is feeling like they have all that they need. And I would say, how do you know that there isn't so much more to experience, far beyond your wildest imaginings of joy and love and all of that, and say, hey, look, try, you don't know until you do know that's sure. available to you, not sure. just in this life, but in the next. And so on the other side, with a believer that's going through a hard time, and that happens, I think, basically exactly what Matthias said. For one, I'd be like, I'm here for you. Let's pray together about it, and just remind them that heaven is waiting. That is one of the things that we have hope for, and sure. also the same thing that, put it simply, our faith must stand trial. It's how it's how God does bring out better in us by using the bad that happens in our life to produce good out of us and for us. He works all things for our good. And even though right. it may seem like a terrible time right now, you don't know what's coming around the corner and how God will use this, whatever it is, tragedy, loss of a loved one, to bring more people to the gospel, to deepen your understanding of his love, and all of that. I mean, there's so many things that can come out of hard times that strengthen our faith than you don't get from peace times. So, I just say, hang in there, brother. I'm praying for you. I'm with you. Call me if you need to, that kind of stuff. And remind them of our hope, which is heaven with Jesus.
Yeah.
So.
Good answer. I will just say that you guys pretty much covered everything that I would say. It's not a cop-out, but I do want to get to question 3. So you covered my answer, and I would just say, I would add that when talking to a non-believer and they're already in despair, I'm not talking about heaven. I'm focusing in on what their personal despair is and dealing with that first. I mean, heaven is a promise for us, and yes, it is part of what we look forward to, and it is our promise to live with him forever. And yes, it brings wonderful joy to a person that believes it. But if a person comes to me and they're in despair, I don't say, hey, buddy, what you have heaven to look forward to if you can just get saved first. I mean, that's not even, it's not even in my head to say that. I'm going to, because of question 1, my answer to question 1, and I feel the love of God in me, I'm going to have empathy toward this person, and I'm going to focus on their problem first, and you know, have a little rapport with the person, and interject God into everything that we talk about. But as far as my response having anything to do with the next life, it doesn't for me. Okay, so we might be able to squeeze this in if everyone listens to the question the first time. I'll read it twice. Question 3, why is it, do you think, that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not or are unable to feel love in this world? Might God actually be a substitute for the love that is elusive and mysterious in this life? Why is it, do you think, that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not or are unable to feel love in this world? Might God actually be a substitute for the love that is in this life? Anyone want to?
One more time?
Why is it, Steve, do you think, that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not feel love in this world? Might God actually be a substitute for the love that is elusive and mysterious in this life?
Wow. I'll give you an example.
Okay,
the
great.
first thought that comes to my mind is the love of a parent or a father that someone might grow up without and not have, and have an abusive father or an abusive parent, etc. And I think that, you know, that would be the most wonderful substitute, and not really I wouldn't call it a substitute. I would call it the original.
Yeah.
And that our parents and all the loves that we could have in this life are but a substitute to real love that is from God.
Yeah.
Everything else is a substitute in comparison to his love.
Yes. And let me add to that, Steve, too, because that was a really, really great question. I just answer, Steve, I've got to tell you, because you can see by question 3, and I'm not trying to be hurtful, but you can see that in question 3, only an unbeliever would be able to think of God as simply a substitute for love. I mean, we understand that God is love. In fact, that any love that we feel in the world, whether we name the source or not, he is the source of it. They have no way to know or understand how evil this world is. And that the very fact that anything light in this world comes from him, I mean, that's at the core of what a believer believes. God is the source of all things, and especially love. So to think that God could be a substitute for the love that we don't feel, or that eludes us, or is somehow mysterious to us in this life, I mean, I can't bend my mind to think like that. So for me, my answer is very short. It is not a substitute for God's love. God is love. So if I'm connected to God, I'm going to feel love. I may not get married. I may not find someone that loves God in the same way I do and is able to love me as a result. So I may not have romantic love. But I will have love from God. And it's not a substitute. I'm connected to the source of all things. Anyone else?
Yeah, the first part of that question makes go and just read the first part of that question.
Why is it, do you think, that some people who feel God's unconditional love...
Okay, that right there. Is that supposedly salvation? Okay. Feeling God's unconditional love. Because I would imagine that everybody who's ever lived and has taken their next breath in a physical form have felt his love, but also, if I believe the Bible, I think God's drawing all men unto himself, and that, they've been feeling his love. So are we talking about saved people with that? When we say people who have felt God's unconditional love? Because I would say that should be everybody, but the reason why some people don't know it is because they choose to ignore it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would agree with that. That they're choosing to ignore it because it is evident.
Right.
His unconditional love is evident to all.
So is the question asking, could that be put in there, a believer? Somebody is that really what it was asking?
It's going to have to be, because if we can't get through the questions without it not being understood, whether from what perspective the question is being asked from and who the question is being asked to, then we can't remove the labels from the questions right now. I mean, we're all just trying this and seeing how we can, make it easier to ask the questions and everybody understand it, and to be inclusive. But I think it's inclusive enough not to use some of the terms that we've already thrown out. I think it's totally appropriate to use the term true believer and non-believer. I think it's totally appropriate.
Oh, I thought that's what we were using.
Well, we were using it, but he was writing it into the questions themselves, and this time he didn't, and it caused all sorts. Seems like confusion. I mean, I wasn't confused because I've had time to read the questions, and I know him, so I know what perspective it's coming from.
Right.
And we've also talked about some of the topics before. He and I mean.
Well, because really, I mean, I get where this is coming. Where it's coming across, because everyone who's seen God's love, if that's a saved person, that's not how we define, or it's not say, it's not, if that's a believer, that's not how we define a believer, because the love factor isn't that's not in the equation for salvation. So, one of the things I would address in the whole thing is that, it's not about feeling his love, and that may be one of the reasons why somebody might not understand what the gospel really is, because it sounds like it's really just connected to emotions, and thinks that feelings and emotions are because that is what churchianity and what you see behind, or in the doors of most churches, is the emotional pull of, you don't hear too much about the blood. You don't hear too much about atonement, faith. It's a lot about, feel good and moving kind of stuff. So I would say that it makes sense why somebody would say that, but I would say that would...
Thank you for using Blogtalk Radio. Goodbye.
Oh, okay. So didn't realize that, guys. You guys all heard that. I got the link already to them, so they're gonna have to scroll up and click the link. Give them a minute or two. I didn't realize we were sitting on that kind of go, but yeah, that didn't work out too well. Let me go ahead and switch microphones for when they do pop in. Guess I could have done that without even telling you guys. You wouldn't even know. Where are you? All right. Now I just need to check testing 1, 2, and we are still audio. All right, Jason.
Yes.
Pretty easy to get quick in here. Steve, I'm pretty sure can get in here. He's done it many times. My prayer is that Jen, when she clicks that, her new app will bring her right in.
I know she's a real part of the show too, so I hope she's able to do it. But if not, then we'll do the best we can for the rest of the time. Jeez.
Right, not having Brenda and Jen, it's too testosterone-y.
Yeah. That's why that's why we have them. I mean, for many reasons, but one of the reasons is so it's not like that. So it's not Matthias, Steve, and myself. There's other views and things involved. So, but that was no problem to change over. It was fairly quick. So, but again, apologize for that. It's my mistake. I mean, I don't know how it happened, but I know that it's something I should probably check again next time to make sure that it's done correctly, but it wasn't done correctly. First time it's happened, but actually Glenn jinxed it. I'll just blame him for it, as if I am at all superstitious in some way. So Steve, did Steve answer question 3? I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
All right, Steve, you're up, buddy. Or wait, Matthias,
Okay.
were you done with your comment before it cut off?
I think he got interrupted.
Yeah, I think he got interrupted. I would agree.
I'm gonna need to hear the question again, though.
Yeah, no problem. Now I was trying to fit it in the time, but it you can't rush everything, right? You want the question again, Steve? Hello.
Sure. Matthias, was you done?
Oh, I see. Okay, wait, hold on a second. Everybody can hear everybody because I'm not simulcasting anymore. Okay, I'm sorry. I got confused there for a second, looking at all my buttons and what I'm muting.
I got
and
you.
Everything now. I see. This is one of the things that's bad about not preparing. When you're in the spirit and you can't, and you stop, it's kind of hard to go back to where you were.
Yep, that's right.
You would have to tell me, and I don't have notes here to get back to. So I may chime in and be like, here it is, and if that's what the Lord does, but there's benefits and there are some negatives to not preparing and not having notes, but I'd rather use the positives than worry about the negatives.
Okay. So, Steve, the question again is, why is it, do you think, that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not or are unable to feel love in this world? Might God actually be a substitute for the love that is elusive and mysterious in this life?
Ooh, that's a long question. And I think I will need it read again, but Jennifer's trying to get back in. She doesn't know how. So that was like on my mind at the moment. She is, I don't know if she's listening to the YouTube, but she's on the Facebook chat that we have.
Well, I was just, the Facebook chat. Okay, I was looking for her in the other one. Jen, give me your email address for the account that it's logged into. Or you know what? That's why the link's not there anymore. Let me. Maybe she doesn't. Well, you have to scroll all the way up.
Yeah, you can copy and paste it. I can repost it in the chat.
Right, let me do that real quick for her.
Yeah, you can copy and paste it. Open Hangouts and open up a new Like,
well, if she's on her
think to
phone,
yourself.
if she's on her
That's how I've had
phone,
to do it.
well, right. I had it in my clipboard already. But Jen, you're on your phone. You can just click that, and Lord willing, it'll bring you right in.
She can't hear you, buddy. She's not. I don't think that she's in your chat room at all. I mean, she's having trouble signing in. That's what she needs.
Oh, I
right?
got you.
Is that right? No, she's there. I'm sorry.
Well, all she has to do is click that, or if that doesn't work, she can put her email address in here, and I can try to make her phone ring. So the email address that the Hangouts connected to when you downloaded the app, give me that email address, and I should be able.
The other thing you can do is if you open Hangouts, you can copy and paste the link from our Facebook chat to you just press the plus sign at the bottom, open yourself up a chat room, and send it to yourself, and then click the link, and it'll open right there in Hangouts. That's how I do it. When you send me the link on another place, like in the Facebook chat, that's what I had to do. If that helps.
I got you. Well, it looks like Brenda's trying to get the app too. Awesome. But yeah, I don't know if sometimes the link doesn't work, so I do have to add you directly, and I can do that from inside the call here if I have your email address. So
She put it in the Facebook chat.
Oh shit! Where?
Yes, she did.
Well, somebody's in here. Jen.
It's
awesome.
me. Sorry, I was having trouble.
No.
Oh, you're so cute with the little camera and stuff. Awesome.
Awesome. So great. So now that you're got access to the platform, you can easily just swing over whenever we need to.
Sweet.
Love it. There we go. Happened for a reason. Supposed to know how it would work out.
And Brenda's still working on getting it installed. So Brenda, let us know if you can click that link and jump in, or if you need me to add you. Just put your email address in the chat here. So from that, I guess we can move forward, right, Jason?
Yeah, I think so. So I'll read the question again because Steve's going to want me to read it again now that we've got all this other stuff straightened out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could take time. This is an after hour, so I'll save it for later. Never mind, Steve. You're safe for now. Okay. Question 3. Why is it, Steve, that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not or are unable to feel love in this world? Might God actually be a substitute for the love that is elusive and mysterious in this life?
Oh, that was the third.
Yeah.
That was the third question?
That's the third question.
Okay, yeah, I did answer that. And that just like that God is not a substitute. Everything in this life is a substitute in comparison to God and his love. That's not to say that you can't experience love in this life, because just like I gave an example, I think I was the first week that, when an artist creates a painting or music or what have you, their part of them has been, that they put themselves in their work. So, that their personality influences their what they make, and whether it be music, art, or whatever. So God's love is present in this world, but the purity of his love that shines in a believer is you know, the completeness of it, as opposed to, spending, 3 minutes listening to a song, you know, by an artist. You're not really spending time with the artist, but you can know something about that artist based on the music they've created. But it's so much different than actually spending time with the artist themselves. And that's the difference between being a believer to me and a non-believer. A non-believer can experience love and all the different emotions that can come in this life because they're present because God made this world. But a believer experiences a relationship with the God who made the world and all of the things that we enjoy in it, including love, joy, and all those kinds of things. So that would be how I would, I guess, explain that the best I can.
Perfect. Who did not answer question 3?
Me, I think.
Okay, you're up. You're up, Jen.
Okay. I don't know if it's possible for someone who I tried to write the question down so I didn't have to ask you again. I don't know if it's possible for someone who has known the unconditional love of God really and truly to not feel love in other areas. Not that I'm just going from my own experience, but hold on. And I think if we use God as a substitute, again, I just don't think we're kind of connecting with it in the right way. God is kind of like the basis of everything. He's the beginning of everything from a true believer's standpoint. He is, he created everything. So being a substitute, I don't know, that doesn't really compute with me. I can see how somebody that was stuck in religion, like being religious, and are you guys still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, sorry, you got really quiet. I was like,
Jen, let me explain one thing. When you were over here on, and it's just a habit for me now, but on Matthias's shows on Talking Doctrine, because when he has a panel, he asks everyone to mute their mic when they're not speaking, and so now it's just habit for me over here. Now at the other on our end, no one's ever muted, and sometimes it causes problems, mainly from Steve. But when he's doing stuff in the background, there's lots of noise and things going on other than what we're talking about. It can be distracting.
Heavy breathing.
With Google Hangouts, heavy breathing. That's right. Just making the bed. With the Google Hangouts, it can be confusing if a bunch of people are talking over each other. But we've been doing this for so long that I don't think it makes as much difference to be muted. But he does it for a reason, because people talk over each other and then it's just garbled.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, I'm still here, but I did have my mic muted.
Okay. Gotcha. So why is it that some people who feel God's unconditional love do not, or are unable to feel love? I don't think that it's possible, in my opinion, for someone to be able to truly feel God's unconditional love and not feel love in other areas. And I'm just coming, obviously from my own perspective. And from a believer standpoint, I don't think that you can use God as a substitute unless you're caught up in a lot of religiosity, where it's like, it could be works, it could be, does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And what was the last part? Something about being elusive in life.
Might God actually be a substitute for love that is elusive and mysterious in this life?
Yeah. Well, I'll pull from some personal stuff that's going on with me. I'll just be vulnerable on air.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Talking to some people about how in marriage and stuff that I've been dealing with, there's just been some times that in a way to protect myself from getting hurt from other humans, and my husband and his own stuff and my own stuff. There's been times that I've really leaned on God in a way that in my mind I was thinking, okay, well, God is not human. He doesn't make mistakes. He loves me unconditionally. So I'm going to lean on him and not lean on my husband because he has hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And
Sure.
so I don't think I would look at that as a substitution, but then again, I could see how somebody might. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just wanted to share.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that the problem definitely stems from, see, we've heard our whole lives that other things are a substitute for what God will provide for us if we look to him for it. So he's coming from the other end, because when he hears in the past that we someone make a comment implying that we can't feel love without the Holy Spirit, when he hears that, he's like, well, wait a minute, I do feel love. I'm married. I have felt love for other people before. I feel love for my family, and I'm not a believer. So what gives? That's really what this question, the last part of that question stems from.
Okay.
In the first place. Because in the question, it's, it feels, he does feel those things, at least from his perspective, he feels that. So if someone says, you can't feel these things or experience these things unless you have the Holy Spirit, then you can see where that's, kind of a burr under the saddle, so to speak.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get mad, but he puts it into the questions. It's kind of the heartbeat of the questions, if you will, from what he's heard from our show before and just in his life.
Yeah.
And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's part of it. So I think I already touched on that as well. Yeah. But as far as it being a substitute, everything else is a substitute. The way I look at it is, and I don't know if every believer thinks this or not. I haven't asked every single one, but that his love is the real part, and other things are substitutes that I have chosen to try to fill a spot that only God can fill in the first place. That's been the problem. And it was a problem for me when I got married, and I expected that marriage, not the individual person that I was marrying, because I kind of had an idea that didn't work, but marriage itself was going to be the thing to fill that hole in me that I felt like I had, that I was aware of.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen, not only did it not happen, but it ended up causing way more pain than I ever wanted to go through in the first place, which is one of the reasons I waited so long to get married.
Yeah.
And then I get married, and I have to go through the very thing that I was avoiding all those years.
Jeez.
Went right through it. No choice, nothing I could do. But in that, as you mentioned on the despair question, that is where God found me and ministered to me in a way that I hadn't ever experienced before, because I never thought I needed him that much. Yeah. I did, but from my perception, I just kind of coasted along. I didn't have an event like that where my idols were cast down, and the thing that I put my belief into, which for me at that time was my marriage alone. And when it fell apart, he was there for me. He didn't say, yeah, you should have kept your trust in me the whole time. Instead, I think your marriage would make a difference. But he didn't treat me like that.
Yeah.
He was there for me during the despair. And because of that, there was a lot of healing and a lot of wisdom that came out of that after the fact. So I consider it a blessing and a gift now, where before, while I was going through it, there's no way I could have looked at it like that.
Yeah.
So other things, my point is, other things are the substitute. God can never be the substitute for anything. He is the source of all sources. He is the creator of all things. So from that perspective, everything else is substitutional where if you're connected to him, if your focus is on him, if your salvation relies on him through Christ, then anything else that's out of that realm would be substitution.
Well, and I don't know if this applies necessarily to the conversation as much, but it's just a true fact from a believer's aspect. We sometimes place our spouse, our parents, even our children, depending on where you are in life's walk, we place them in substitution of things that we should go to God for. So while from the non-believers, you know, like maybe it's just a substitution for, I get where that's coming from, but actually we should be leaning on God for all things.
Yes.
From our perspective, from a believer's perspective.
Yeah.
And that we should be looking at relationships, even our closest ones, and seeing, are we relying on them in ways that we should be actually taking that and relying on Father instead?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I know you're younger than me, but have you ever heard the phrase "Jesus is just a crutch"?
I have.
Right.
I have. I heard it as a derogatory term.
Well, it is. It is derogatory.
Right, but I wasn't a believer. I was a Catholic listening to somebody preach the correct gospel and not even realizing it. And people that I knew were telling me, yeah, they just put Jesus as a crutch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get what it meant, but I've heard it.
Well, I grew up because in the 70s and 80s, during that period of time, it was a popular saying. It was said all the time. In fact, we had an easy defense for it. And my dad even said it was so prevalent at those times because back then, generally in social circles, they were not as open with their jabs like they are today. I mean, today, if you're a believer, I mean, as far as I can see, it's fair game. I mean, people can call you every name in the book, and they do. But back then, you know, they had to be a little bit more subtle. And the only reason I brought it up is because it's similar to what's being suggested in the question about it being a substitute, you know, a crutch slash substitute for something else. I mean, you use a crutch if you break your leg, sprain your leg, so you have to use the crutch as a substitute for your leg that's broken. So in the same way, the question is it possible that God is just a substitute for the missing love? That's what it relates to from my childhood. And we had an easy defense for that. I actually hadn't heard that again in a long time, but I heard it the other day, so I threw it in there. It's
well,
what was the defense for it?
If Jesus is a crutch, I'll take two.
Well, and actually, right, because that's why I was like, well, I've heard it as derogatory, but when it comes down to it, I'm happy to say that yes, I can't get to heaven on my own.
Right.
I am leaning on the crutch of Jesus and his righteousness, and that alone. In fact, it's not a crutch that I'm leaning on. It's that I had every broken bone in my body, and it was Christ that came in and made me able to walk.
Right.
Would be a better analogy.
That is a good one.
But to answer the question, more direct with where it was coming from. And I remember I was getting into this at one point, and
there you
I
go.
thought something came up. Well, this was the other another broadcast.
That's okay.
About I thought I was loving my daughter when she was 0 to 2. And I did, the way that a parent loves. I had good examples of what love is, but my actions were actually leading her away from the truth of the Bible. So while I had a superficial, what everybody has as an in general naturalistic love, especially for their loved ones, that's just natural and everybody has. But because of my actions that were completely against what the Bible says in many ways, we were totally against discipline. We didn't understand that discipline is an important, valuable part of upbringing. We were hypnotized by the world, thinking timeouts and things were, and talking was what got through to kids. But right. God's the one who created them. God knows what's best, and when you start as a man, you start taking the head of the household and doing what God tells you to do as a man. It's supernatural how things fall into place, and this feeling of love is just in joy and peace that comes from doing as God says is something that can't even be put into words. And so, my love for my daughter before I was saved was buying her every single toy, putting her in front of every single TV show that was made for her age group, thinking that this is, getting all the different things for her and the best of the best and everything there was. I love her. But let's say I did this all the way to her teenage years, I would have created a monster. I would have created the generation that you see stuck in their phones. The daughter I'm speaking of now is 10 years old.
Yeah.
And she does have friends who are hypnotized by their phones all day long. My children don't have cell phones. They're, again, 12 or 10 and 5. So they're much too young, but they won't be for a long time because I see the attack of technology. That would be a good broadcast topic. But
it would be. Let's keep that in mind for a later show.
Right.
I already knew before you told me that they didn't have cell phones. I could have, if someone asked me, do you think Matthias's kids have cell phones? Was not the younger ones. No, they don't have them.
Right. Of course not. They have a old smartphone that's not hooked up to anything but Wi-Fi, and we'll let them and it's not even hooked up. We just get little games for them and let them play on it.
Sure.
So they do have functionality, but they have no Satan and his minions have no method of getting to our children outside through us, and it will be that way till they're adults. So
I love it. I don't blame you one bit. I don't have kids of my own, unfortunately, at this point, but there still is time, I'm sure. But I do have 3 nieces and a nephew, and I have 2 godchildren, and I spend a lot of time with my nieces and nephew and my goddaughter, and their parents control their their intake from devices. But they too, and I've heard stories, they have friends that they come over and they want to sit and play on their phones. Well, they don't have phones, so they've got to find other things to do. which they know how to do. They know how to do other things. But Finn is 5, and all of his friends, none of them have any imagination whatsoever. Everything's driven by devices. You know, my sister said, go out and play in your treehouse. And so what do we play? When we were kids, when Shannon, that's my sister, Shannon and I were kids, we had a piece of plywood that my dad was in trim. He did trim for new homes, and he had a little tool shed in the back. And we pulled a piece of plywood out and laid it in the middle of the yard, and it was a raft in the middle of a raging river, and we had to figure out how to be safe. You know, I mean, we played outside and we came up with stuff. We jumped ramps on our bikes. We played football. Again, yeah, we could make a show out of that, I can tell.
Right. Oh, I mean, when we were kids, we were in beta playing. And now, you know, we left playing in beta and then went to the TV to go to alpha. But now we got brainwashed in that little bit of time. But now these kids are walking down the street with their face in the screen at the frames per second, and they're just in alpha state all the time. They're as extremely as brainwashed society has ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that subject. What's up, Steve?
I was gonna add a little bit more on that last question, that I think, you know, with the whole crutch thing.
Yeah, you can. You can add.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I think that whole idea of God being a crutch, and the way we look at what a crutch is, that it's, you know, a device that aids rather than being what we understand the Bible to say is our foundation. And this idea that, you know, that we need something else to fill a void, or to complete, as opposed to without Christ, it's not an addition. It's a fact of nothing can be done as far as our salvation is concerned. Excuse me, apart from Christ being our foundation. And that's why those of us that are true believers, especially on this panel, we're so about trying to help people understand that it's not about what we do. It's not about, you know, our works or anything that we can do. It's simply about Christ, and that Christ is our foundation. It's not like Christ is a wall in the house. Without that foundation, you're building a house upon no foundation. It's either foundation to build on a house that is gonna not last for eternity, or a house that will last for eternity because your foundation is Christ. It's not that Christ is a crutch. I said this earlier, that in a different chat, that he's more like a stretcher than a crutch, because we were dead in sin. So we were really being, without Christ and belief in him, inevitably will be wheeled to the morgue.
So, taking a ride to the meat wagon.
Exactly. And God can either be our stretcher ride to heaven, or our unbelief being our stretcher ride to hell. And we don't look at, you know, as far as, if I was to look at that from an unbeliever's perspective as best I could, that when we're looking at these things, these things we're looking at, trying to look at from a spiritual, we look at them from a spiritual perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But because a non-believer is a non-believer, that's just a factual statement, not meant to harm at all.
Of course not. No, we've determined
a non-believer doesn't have spiritual eyes to look at the spirit, at what will be. And it's only by the preaching of faith and the preaching of the gospel that they can have their eyes open to the truth, that there is more to this life now and more to in this life to come. And that's why it's not about God being a crutch. It's about God being our foundation, and that everything that we do, we try to weigh, is this a good thing to add to the foundation of Christ, or is this a bad thing to add to my foundation in Christ, and how my actions display God here in the earth through me? So I hope that's helpful in that, it's not that we're replacing something.
Right.
It's something that without which we would not have the eyesight we have spiritually, and we wouldn't know what we're missing until we had it.
Yeah. That's true. Did we all get a chance to answer question 3? I think we did.
Yep.
Those
are great questions, though. But obviously, moving forward,
and
let me just
Matthias,
finish this.
Check the chat, the Facebook chat. Maybe you can send her the link direct, Matthias. I don't know, or invite direct.
Who?
Brenda.
Oh.
I think she's ready, but I don't know.
Her phone died. I don't know how she'd be calling, but that's okay.
On the computer.
Oh, okay. So he knows what to do. Matthias, did you hear Steve about sending Brenda the link?
I did. I'm actually typing to her to send me the email address. What email address is she using? So.
Okay, you got it then.
Yeah.
It's in the chat. Just scroll up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Well, with all the technical difficulties, it seemed to work out okay for us to come over here. So I'm glad that was okay. And I'm actually glad that you take so long to answer your question, Steve, because I was trying to fit it in before, and I didn't want to rush it, but so we ended up having to stretch it out into the normal 2-hour format, which worked out just fine. So I'm glad that happened. But I will not do that again. I'll make sure and triple check the time frame that I really don't even know how it happened, because it would be something you would notice really easily when setting it up. But I was having trouble with another issue in the Blogtalk software, and I had to do it several times. So the first time I did it, I know it was right. But then when I had to go back and save it again and make changes, something changed and I didn't notice it. So, okay. So again, just a reminder for those in the chat room that want to be involved for next week, if you can submit your love story, and it can be on anything, any subject. I mean, make it clean for our channel, please.
Darn it.
Yeah, that's
Just kidding.
yeah, Jen. Darn it. Jen, if you're looking for stuff like that, that's all over the place. You can go find Google Hangouts where they're blasting each other with expletives left and right. So all we want for next week, and if you could have it by Wednesday, that would be great. Now for the panel, you know how you're going to do it. If you're gonna write it up, that's great. If Steve had mentioned that, can he just read it? Absolutely, you can just share it or read it or whatever you want to do. That's going to be a great topic for next week for part 2. So part 1, we hit a snag, but we were able to finish it and get the questions in there. I think it worked out okay. And then so for the next 2 weeks, we are going to be talking on the subject of love. So tonight's was the feeling of it. And so the next week, 1 second, I've got it right here. Okay. There it is. Okay. We got this all dialed in. So show 2, Love Actually part 2 is the emotion. The emotion. And then Love Actually part 3, which is the journey. Emotion and journey. So for next week, all we need is your stories. If you want them not to be read, or if you don't want to be identified on the air, simply say that in your email. And you can either send your emails to talkinddoctrine@gmail.com, or you can send it to me, truestorylive.crips@gmail.com. And we will add them into the broadcast for next week. Anybody have anything else? Anybody want to go back to a question and revisit it or anything like that?
Well, maybe ask the chat room, especially Glenn, because Glenn, did we answer the questions? Is there anything that we should
clean up?
Right. Go talk maybe a little more precisely to what you were addressing. Yeah. And then also, Brenda, if you go look in the Google Hangouts, go to your invites, look in the, just look around and you'll find an invites folder. From there, you should see one for this phone call. And then also there's a chat room that you're now in that you should be able to see. So if you look in your Google Hangouts page or app. So yeah, so Glenn or anybody in the chat room.
Bryce asked a question too that you might want to answer. So is there a Milk Monday tomorrow?
There is a Milk Monday tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and do it at least 3 nights a month. We'll take off one Monday night and we'll figure out which one. We'll rotate that just depending on everyone's schedule. We'll look ahead for the month between the regular panelists. Whichever one, somebody may have something on, we'll go ahead and take that one off. But we'll do at least 3 out of 4 weeks and on Mondays.
Perfect. Well, I'll be there for that tomorrow as well. So we'll have fun with that. It's really a great thing. I was going to tell people, I'm not over on the Blog Talk now. I'm on your channel, so everybody already knows about it. I don't have to plug your channel because they already know.
Right.
I'm not on Blog Talk. I'm a guest on your show on the Simulcast. That's so bizarre. I love it.
You're still leading it. It's still yours. But
yeah, okay.
Just the platform.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so just to tie up my ends for True Story Live. So I went over what we're going to be talking about next week. Submit your stories either to Matthias or myself before Wednesday so that we can get it all together. It makes it easier for us. And then Glenn did say that the questions are okay, that you need to tighten up the questions, which he'll work on. He and I will work on that to make sure that I take it for granted because I've been talking to Glenn online for 15 months and I've known him longer than that. So I already know when he asks me a question, I know what he's asking. But you guys don't have the same time put in, so it needs to be clear when we read the questions. It needs to be clear to you guys so that we don't have to explain, from what way he means it, or from what perspective or what angle he's coming from, so that we can get through them without having to do more explanation of the question themselves.
Right, because it just keeps us vague on trying to answer all of them rather than precisely answering the question at hand.
Exactly. So I'm actually glad it happened like that when it did, because it does make it easier for us to move forward, and it makes it easier for us to work on that aspect. So we'll work on it a little bit for the questions for next week. So sorry about all the problems. This would normally be the end of the normal broadcast time for our show. So Matthias, it's up to you. If you, I'll turn it over to you, and it's up to you if you want to go a little bit longer or not.
No, that's up to you. We've got after hours, and I don't have a Milk Monday, or not a Milk Monday, but a New Moon Tunes scheduled. So, no, that's up to you. And actually, I'm noticing even maybe it's I've had everything running through my headphones. Jen's microphone seems to be picking up even better than before.
Awesome.
That is awesome. You do sound pretty good on here.
Yeah,
that's
you
good.
sound muffled.
Yeah, you sound a lot clearer.
A lot louder.
Yeah. Well, a lot clearer and a lot louder.
Yes, both.
Okay. Maybe I should use this more often. Yay!
Bryce is asking if he can get on the panel. Bryce, do you mean for tomorrow or for tonight? Because we're just doing after show part, which I don't know.
What time is that tomorrow, Matthias, the Milk Monday? People are asking.
Right, 9:30 Central, 10:30
Eastern.
Eastern.
Yeah.
And we will get started, Lord willing, on time. Things in my life have slowed down in the real world, so I can focus more on online ministry. So, Lord willing, we'll get started right about that time. And Bryce, of course you can join. Hopefully with questions, insights that are milky, which from where you're from where you're coming from, and the fast that he had, we'd love to hear about it. So of course you can join.
Keep it milky.
And anybody who wants to join on Milk Mondays, we have Daryl and Jason, who are normal panelists. But if you've got questions, if you got something that you've had during the week that's come up and you want to ask and get at least 3 people's perspectives, you're more than welcome to join for a little bit and ask. That's what it's for. But we will take the questions from the chat room as well, so you don't have to necessarily join us. Whoa, am I on system sound?
I heard that earlier. A little bit.
Hold on, let me mute this. Okay, so she found it in she found our little chat in Google Hangouts.
Okay, good.
But well, good. Brenda, if you look inside this chat that we're in, if you can hear us, if you look at the very top left-hand corner, there's a green camera. If you push that green camera, it'll bring you in the conversation with us. You don't have to necessarily come in tonight if you don't want to. You're saying it's late, but if you want to test it out and try it so we can know for next time, go right ahead. But it's that green camera in the top left-hand corner next to the people with the number 4. So sorry, just a few technical issues. Once we get this in, we'll be able to smooth ride through anytime we do it again.
We'll be okay. Glenn said he's passing through on the way to Michigan from Charlotte.
Glenn or Steve?
Yeah, Glenn.
Oh.
Glenn said he's passing mainly to go to Kentucky to see racehorses, he says.
Oh, is he really in the States?
No, he's not. I think he's talking about coming. He is going to come. He's been here. Oh, he's talking about past tense. Yeah. So he's been here. He and my mom traveled around and went to Michigan and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's been here. So they're planning on coming back in November, I believe. If everything goes correctly, unless he's changed. Yeah, he's talking about the past. They're planning on coming in November again for a face-to-face kind of visit. And so I'm looking forward to that. And we might even go to Virginia.
Yes.
Yes, we're going to go on an antiques thing or something. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something up there where Jen lives. She's going to have some guests,
some company.
Right,
yeah. I was gonna say, and that's just your line of work. Is that why you said that, Jason? Or
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your line of work, and we're gonna look at their shop and stuff, and who knows? We might go on a antique hunt. I've always wanted to do that.
Take out picking.
Yep, go pick. Go picking for some stuff.
Heck yeah.
That'd be interesting. We're gonna have
dig
fun.
around in some barns.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll get to meet in person if that all works out. I'm looking forward to that. And
looking at some hotels.
American pickers.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
They make our job look easy. It's not that easy. It's not always that fun.
No, I'm sure it's not. Yeah, they have time to set the shots up and all that. Yeah, and when you watch it, there's no way it's yeah, no doubt.
Well, I wouldn't doubt if the whole thing's skidded out, like somebody wrote a script.
Oh no, it is. We've had some personal friends that have been on the show, and we got all the intel.
Yeah, you can tell by the way they haggle sometimes. It's like the guys, come on, man.
It's reality TV, but it's so not reality.
Right.
I thought that's odd. An odd name for something that's not real.
Well, that's part of the lies of Satan.
The shtick.
To put it out in the open. And it's part of that alpha state I was talking about, the brainwashing.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
So of the people in the chat room, how many people are listening right now that plan on being part of next week's show as far as submitting a love story of some sort? I'll just ask that, and you can answer if you can hear me still and want to answer. You can just give an idea whether you're going to be involved with that. And I love having Glenn in your chat room. I think it's very interesting, and he's had several conversations with different people and stuff, which is very interesting. I like to see how people react to him, because he's just fairly calm and doesn't get ruffled too easily and stuff. And then other people are, not always like that. And so it's interesting. Yes. Mr. Rich Bob, B.O.B., a love story. Yes. A love story of some sort. It could be about, I don't know if you're married or not, but you could write it about your marriage. You could write it about your love of God, your love of green Jell-O, if you wanted to. If you do like green Jell-O. I don't know. Whatever you want, but a story about love in some way.
Very cool.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it. We can go ahead and call tonight. We covered everything we need to. We talked about next week. And is Brenda going to try it though, or not? Did she decide not to give it a shot and just see if it works?
Well, she's like right there.
She's working on it.
Oh, she's still working on it?
Right there on the edge of it, it seems.
Okay.
It's telling, like, it looks, I think she's at the join.
Oh, good.
Page. So just hit that green join link. And then you'll have you need to mute YouTube before you come on, but
it's hard to do quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
And also there's a little bit of a lag, so you're going to miss a little bit anyways, but no worries. But yeah, we can have her try even off air, so it's up to you. It doesn't matter. You let me know what we're doing. And
oh yeah, we could talk. She can come on air just to see. Yeah, I would like to know if it works and we can hear and all that stuff. Yeah, that's no problem. It's after hours too, so even if I
right.
The only reason I even asked her if she wanted to answer the question in the first place, because technically she's still on vacation. She hasn't necessarily come back. So she doesn't have to answer questions, or she doesn't have to come on if she doesn't want to, whatever. I mean, it's not like it's a requirement anyway. If she doesn't want to do it, she doesn't have to do it. But that's the only reason I said that earlier. I said, I can't make you answer the questions. You know, it's just a joke.
Oh, I'm unmuted. I'm sitting here. I'm glad I have a silent keyboard. Brenda, where the screen you're at right now, hit F5. It will refresh your screen, and then do the join button again and see if that'll fix it. But yeah, once we get the technical things figured out, just that link in the in our Facebook side chat will fix it, keep us going strong.
This is actually
it puts that pop up that you're about to join. You're supposed to click a check mark box. That's like
to allow your camera or your mic.
No, it's like a notification screen that you're about to join a live thing, and it's like a notice page before you can actually. You have to click OK on that, and then you'll have your mute options. Yeah.
Right, but it sounds like she's past that if she's at the join page, because that comes up before you get to the join page. But you know, it's sometimes. Let me see if I can't just make her computer ring one more time. Since she's already in here, this might just give her a ring. Hold on.
While you're doing that, so Glenn just said, does that mean you were one of those horror children? I don't know what that means. What's a horror child?
They were talking about love stories, and JW said, I think horror loves me.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what does that mean? Wait, what?
Oh, didn't we talk about the favorite movies the other day?
Yeah.
That's a
good
subject.
Was that on the show or during?
I think it was in chat. Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we were talking about Lady Hawk.
That's right. Lady Hawk with Rutger Hauer.
We were talking about all different kinds of movies.
I know.
That was awesome.
It was.
We have good fellowship.
Yes.
It's a thing that is part of my life now, which is comforting. I'm not a huge chatter. I don't. Well, before these past 15 months, I spent no time on Messenger or chat rooms or any of that. And then we started doing the shows, and then so we were doing chats that involved, the show. Just to keep communication going and stuff.
We're taking you out of your shell, Cripps.
What? What'd you say?
I said we're taking you out of your shell, getting you out of your shell.
Okay.
You're blossoming.
What would I ever do? I don't know. That story of love to next show. Yeah. So
Matthias, Brenda said to try again.
Try again.
Try the direct call again. She got it and just missed it.
She's technically challenged.
Right. Well, I was doing it. I just called again. So at this point, it should tell her she's about to go on live, and then click the join, and Lord willing, jump in.
Jump on in. Amanda Gill. So she says, I know all about Jerry Springer, and my friend was on Maury. So that was obviously a pregnancy test then if she was on Maury.
You know you watch. Hey, Brenda.
Hey!
Woohoo! All right.
Is she on? I don't see her.
She's down there. I see her picture.
I see you, Brenda.
Right?
Oh, there it is.
And you're not muted,
There
but your microphone might not be right on.
Oh, she hung up.
Is it work? No, I didn't. Is
No.
it working?
You're there.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
come on.
No, you're here. We hear you.
Okay, this is very confusing. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
You're you got it though.
Brenda,
if you're
you're like
on
me,
the
I'm like, I don't
computer,
know how I'm gonna get back on here next time.
Now that it's over.
well,
Just have to stay online till next week.
That's right.
well, now that you guys or girls, ladies, have gotten on the link, when you click on it from your computer, it'll bring you right in.
Oh, sweet.
So, you just needed to really make the first connection. After that, it's usually easy. But yeah, Brenda, you figured it out. So praise God, you're in.
All right, we got it. Stop. It's my children. They're still up. Okay, no, stop. All right, guys. Well, I figured it out for next week. So,
Okay. Thanks, Brenda.
all right, talk to you soon.
Bye.
David.
Bye,
Sorry,
guys.
guys.
No
Bye.
worries. Tell them we said hi.
Well, there are some worries.
Yeah, there's a little bit of worries on you. Oh, Matthias, just real quick. This week, is there a way I can talk to you and just make sure I do this correctly and add another question about homeschooling? Because I might be thinking of doing it with Robert. I know it's a different topic, but is there a week
actually, yeah, of course. Not tomorrow. I probably got to work all day, but Tuesday I'm free. So yeah, we could go over. I could get you lined up with Hangouts, and then the homeschooling thing. My wife and I can share whatever information, and then also we should maybe have a conversation or a broadcast about that public education, private, and homeschooling one day. That might take a good 2 hours to talk about.
Yeah, people have their opinions on that subject, don't they?
Right, it would be fun.
It
But yeah, Brenda, mornings are good for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
And I think you're an hour ahead of me, so
Before you, I'm Midwest. You're ahead of me.
Oh, you're behind me.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. So I'm 1 hour earlier than you, right?
What time is it?
Right now it's 10:18.
No,
So it's 11:18 by you.
We're in the same time zone.
Oh, we are. That's right, because you're closer. Okay, sorry. I keep thinking you're Southern Florida. Sorry.
Right, or at least Eastern time zone.
Eastern
But
time
yeah, I am Northern Florida and Central, so we're both in the same one. I forgot you were in Wisconsin.
Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Well, you guys have a good night. Thanks again for all these technical things. Sorry, Jason, for jumping in too late.
Nope, it's no problem. It's after hours.
Right, and can you got a second to answer any of the questions from tonight before you go? Since
She did answer the first one. Did you answer the second one, Brenda?
Yeah, I answered I think 1 and 2 or
1 and 2. Yeah. So the third one, do you want to tackle question 3, or do you need to go?
No, I think you guys answered it pretty well. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, cool. All right then.
All
Talk
right.
to you next week. Now, are you
All
coming
right.
back next week?
September 7th, I thought.
Oh, September 7th. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Gotcha. No problem.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye, John. Night.
And that was really cool because she even came in really clear.
Hasta
So
luego.
Hasta luego. Yes.
Okay, so now I know it works.
Auf Wiedersehen.
She's still there though.
Oh, adios, friend.
How do I hang up?
You hit the red.
How do I hang up?
You hit the red phone button on the top of your screen.
Okay, this is gonna be a silly radio broadcast. Okay, I'm really leaving now. Bye, guys.
It's
Auf
okay.
Wiedersehen.
He says it again. He says it again.
Well, I said like 3 different ways.
I know.
Hasta luego.
Yes.
Auf Wiedersehen. And what was the other one? Assalamu alaikum. I don't know.
No. Don't know.
Oh, Steve.
I don't think that's one.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
It isn't.
Auf Wiedersehen.
No.
There we go.
Hasta muchachos. Hasta.
All right, are we all going by?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
I suppose.
I really do appreciate Glenn, and Glenn, with this platform, when you are able, when you have time, as long as you've got a microphone and speakers, you can join us on here as well. So
Free.
when you find it appropriate, it would be like with the blog talk, it would cost a lot of money calling in.
Yeah.
But with this, it's absolutely free. It's using the same internet that you're using to text. You could actually join us audio.
Yep.
So that would be an awesome addition to the broadcast sometime in the future. I'm not pressing them, but I want you to know that I would greatly appreciate it and look forward to if maybe one day you possibly would. But with this Hangouts platform, it really does make it possible.
Sure does. Yep. We've talked about that. I think it's going to happen at some point. Maybe very soon. All right.
Or a combination of the two.
Oh, yeah, it could very well end up being that. I mean,
Where we do like the simulcast, but have the blog talk simulcasted to where we can have the simulcast as part of the Hangouts somehow. I don't know.
well, yeah, because if Matthias is on through Talking Doctrine and he has a guest on his end, it would work the same way as it works for Matthias. I mean, that we'd be able to hear him on the blog talk. Whoever's listening on that end would be able to hear him.
Right. Like just
Well,
like this,
maybe.
but have the blog talk active.
Oh, he says maybe. Never mind. He says maybe then. I don't know.
In theory, I would be able to, and a brother is actually sending me a mixing board.
Oh, cool.
And then I might be able to do stuff like that, but it's easier to have everybody from Blog Talk coming in piped in on one. I'm not sure if I could get those, because I was thinking about it when I was thinking about how clear Jen was. I was like, wow, it would be better for her to be using the app microphone than her phone microphone, because there's different microphones apparently. Well, there are different microphones. So the if I could figure out a way to where people could join in here and then be like, it would just be all of us coming through the Matthias of Blog Talk, where we log in. But it should be able to work but you wouldn't be able to see everybody on that end. That's the only difference. If people called in, you would have them on the Blog Talk, but yeah, we could certainly play with it and try to figure it out. But at the same time, does Blog Talk have an app?
I don't know.
I was thinking if we did it like we're right now and Jason just come on to talking doctrine through Blog Talk like normal. Like through the simulcast, we'd all be able to hear him.
Yeah.
And have the rest of us so that it's just his voice and any call-ins.
Well, what I might be able to do is work with Jason to figure out to where Jason, because one thing that's cool about this platform is when people are talking differently, our pictures are popping up for them so they can see who's talking. You know, even if it's just the icon, you know, it separates the people. But I might be able to work with you, Jason, set up to where you log in or you sign in to here, but then you also sign into Blog Talk and you just pipe in what we're doing here into Blog Talk.
Oh, yeah. Sure, that's possible.
You know, then we're all doing the Hangouts, but then it's piped into all together from your end.
Yeah.
Into True Story Live.
That's possible. Mr. Rich Bob says, in a world where Steve says bye 3 times and still isn't gone. Doesn't say Steve though. He says, "Soldier for Christ."
It wasn't me that wasn't leaving.
What happens when Steve doesn't leave? He says goodbye 3 times, but still isn't gone.
I like that movie voice prank.
Oh man, that's perfect.
What do you do then?
You should actually
pull out the stretcher.
You should actually make some gospel things with that.
Oh, I've played around with so many voices. I worked in a call center one time as a Christian-based call center. And this is another show too, because the Christian-based call center that I worked in had all these different ministries that are spread out all over. And we were like a clearinghouse for their answering service, you know, we sold products sometimes, we took prayer requests and all that kind of stuff. And so we got a really good indication of which ones of the ministries were, you know, kind of shady and which ones aren't. And it just so happens that Jim Baker, you know, which I've told people before that I unfortunately went to his school before he fell apart. He would call in every day, call the manager of the call station that I worked at to see how much his sales were for that day. He was the only one that called in sometimes a couple times a day to check on the results of how much money they made, his ministry. Anyway, I was there. Sometimes I had to work 3rd shift, which is extremely slow. So people would get me to do voices when I would answer the phone, you know, like do Hannibal Lecter. So I would answer the phone you know, they're calling a ministry and I'm speaking like I'm Hannibal Lecter while I'm talking to them. So I'm not saying stuff like he would say. I'm doing the script, but I'm sounding like Hannibal Lecter or other people. So I had a lot of fun doing stuff like that. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. That would be fun to hear.
Yeah.
And also, I think I would hope I could recognize and goof around back with you if I was on the receiving end.
Yeah, well, a lot of times it was older ladies like, where do we send the prayer cloth to you, Mrs. Johnson? You know, it's like, what? A lot of times they had no idea.
He puts the lotion.
Yeah.
Wow.
It gives me the credit card number and I write it down and I send you the prayer cloth.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we had fun with
Clarice.
that. Clarice. Yeah. What do the lambs sound like, Clarice? Did you hear the sound of the lambs? Did you? Out there in the woods?
So John Goodman sounds like who? I'm trying to remember his name. Who's that?
Oh my!
He says, I thought Frank was Jason in a world where Frank, Jason, and John Goodman are all the same person. I don't know who Frank is, though. I thought Frank was Jason, a world where Frank, Jason, and John Goodman are all the same person. I don't know who Frank is, though. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get the Frank part either.
I get the Jason and John Goodman because I've heard that before, but as far as Frank goes, I don't know a Frank, frankly. Yeah.
Shirley, I don't know a Frank. And don't call me Shirley.
Oh, so Mike W's doing the lotion one. So that voice is, it puts the lotion on its skin or it gets the hose again.
Right, I mixed it up, right? But I was thinking...
Oh, no, what you did was correct. It was still hilarious. But Mike W is referring to that one. She kind of like a big girl, fat girl. It's like says in the front door. It's like, what? Is she kind of a big girl? Yeah.
You think John Goodman's voice is deeper
than mine?
I wouldn't say so.
No. In fact, that's the thing I don't hear. I mean, I love that people think it sounds like John Goodman, but his voice is not as deep as mine, I don't think. He sounds more nasally than I do. I mean, I know I do have that Midwestern sound in my voice, but it's, it's not as thick as, when I go up north and hear the way that they talk up there. Because it's really a mixture. It's a mixture of Southern and Northern together. It kind of evens out. Anyway. Thank you, Coaster Lisa. She says, that's pretty good, Jason. Ha ha. I don't know which thing, but thank you anyway. All right.
And apparently you were Frank, but we'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
This is Jason.
Frank. Yeah.
There's no Frank here.
Frank needs to read John Goodman script. I'm not Frank. Yeah. I don't know who Frank is. My name's Jason or Cripps, whatever. A lot of my friends call me by my last name. That's what they do in the North. Everyone's known by their last name. They didn't use first names very often.
Right. But see, you can use it as a play on words. Like I'm Jason Cripps. And if you don't hear and listen and respond to the message that I'm saying, you're going to go to the crypt.
Right, the crypts. Crypts.
Eternally.
That's right. Jessica Dallas, she said, you're boring. We're boring? Are you bored? Really? I'm sorry, Jessica. Yes, right. Jason. Jason. That's right. That's me. All right. Well, we'll call tonight, I guess. But this has been great. I'm glad that we were able to switch over when he had all the problems, and I'm sorry again. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. First time it's happened. Oh, one more thing before we go. I just noticed that this is the 20th simulcast of True Story Live and Talking Doctrine. The 20th number. This episode right here is number 20. Yay!
Yay!
That's awesome.
All right, that's 52. No, we're almost half a year in.
Wow. I just didn't even know that until I saw it. I mean, it's been in front of my face all night, but I just noticed it. Simulcast number 20. You have it written right on there. Thanks, Mike W.
Right. That way, because a lot of times there's information and they just don't know exactly which one it is. So if we number them, it makes it easy for playback reasons.
Yeah. Coaster Lisa says Tales from the Crypt, just no S. Yeah, I heard that growing up. Tales from the Crypts. The Crypts. They just put the S on though. Tales from the Crypts. I like it. I like my name. Always have. Not the first one, but the last one.
It reminds me of that lady, I guess I should call it, from the beginning of Tales from the Crypts.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what that thing is, but yeah, it was a skeleton. Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, that guy, the little skeleton guy with the long, stringy hair at the beginning.
Right.
He does have a name. I don't remember what it was, though. And a weird laugh. The guy that does the voice is a dude, though. I mean, I've seen him. He used to do the voice for that character.
Right.
Well, if you don't have the blood, you go down with the crypt.
There you go.
That's right. You said that before on the other platform. It's still funny though.
Sarah, I've got a lot of thoughts on flat Earth and end times. So does, well, I guess Steve doesn't, but Jen and Jason do too. A lot of people that listen to these broadcasts come from Flat Out Grace. So yeah. Sarah, if you're not on Facebook, you should get a Facebook, even if like I have one and I don't put anything on there but ministry stuff.
Yeah.
No pictures of my family, no pictures of what I am eating or where I'm going or checking in, none of that CIA database stuff. But I do use it as a platform to share the gospel and to communicate. Now, I know that they're using their data logging, even our communications, but, you know, I trust Christ. It's the Antichrist system that's being put together, and, you know, it is going to get worse, and it's either going to be God who protects us and keeps us through, or it's going to be God who allows us to get that crown of martyrdom. So maybe we could do a topic on that on True Story Live. Or
we'll be raptured out of it.
Or we'll be raptured out.
Right.
There's a lot of people who affirm the flat Earth do affirm the pre-trib rapture, but they're just wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I think I'm right.
You think you're right? Yeah. Well, you know, here's the bottom line about that. First of all, we could do a show about that, but we did a show about rapture, and there was so much negative feedback from it because of the different beliefs. And I don't understand why people can't just believe differently and still be friends with each other. I mean, you know, be in fellowship. It's not an essential doctrine. I mean, I think it is important. From my perspective, it's important because when these things start happening and you're not secret raptured away, you know, but the verses of the Bible they use for the rapture all talk about the noise and sounds and all the things that are going to come with it. And it's not a secret. But anyway, so we talked about it. We did an episode on it. And then people were getting blocked and banned and having confrontations over the difference between pre-trib or post-trib. I don't understand. It's not an essential doctrine. So I don't understand why people can't just discuss it openly. Oh,
yeah.
And Mr. Rich Bob says flat Earth is also divisive. He didn't say also. He said flat Earth is always divisive. I did notice that, Matthias, from Friday. It's like in the chat room. You know, you guys are calmly discussing flat Earth, and obviously you don't agree. But even some of the chat rooms, like people losing their minds in there, just hurling insults at each other. And of course, you and I have seen this before. I mean, all over the place on Facebook. I mean, the way people talk to each other. And frankly, from the non-believer's perspective, who's a flat earther, it makes sense because it just continues to fit into the same category of, I mean, there's no check on their spirit. I mean, there's nothing to keep them. But when you see Christian flat earthers calling other people idiots and morons and globetards and stuff like that, they're not gonna get into the truth of flat Earth when they're getting that sort of treatment before they've even looked into it. I mean, it's I don't see how it's going to happen. So overall, regardless of what your belief system is, your presentation, at least from a Christian perspective, should be kinder, and people shouldn't be offended by the way that you're saying something or by the words that you're using when describing something which is to them an alternative belief. Anyway.
Right. No, I agree 100%. It was said that there was all that in the chat room because should have been a playful, just a fun conversation between somebody who is very interested in science and wants to just learn what it is, how somebody could believe something so different than what he was learning in school.
Yeah.
And
how can that be, Matthias? How can it be that he's learning something different than what you've learned? He's 12? He's 12?
Right.
Yeah.
12, but from what I believe, because I was taught when I was his age, I was just like him.
Of course.
Just like him. I wanted to be an astronaut when I was his age.
Sure. I want to be a magician.
Right.
Y'all gonna laugh. I wanted to be Batman.
That's okay. Was it the tights that called you to that profession?
No. It's the like one quote unquote superhero that is actually feasibly possible with enough money.
Yeah.
With enough money and training.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Actually, you're right. I mean, if you had enough money, you could buy all the gadgets and the secret hideout and the cars and helicopters and all that stuff. And then you could get training. I mean, you might be limited. You might be limited in some ways, but you definitely could get training. To be a good fighter and stuff. I mean, it's available to people if they have the time to go out there and learn it. Anybody can learn all that stuff, really. You're limited, though, genetically.
Yeah.
Not you personally, I'm saying in general.
Well, yeah, and I think part of it was just wanting to kick bad guys' butts.
Mike W. LOL. Mike W. says the tights were just a fringe benefit.
No.
I'm not sure he's referring to you, Steve, but for him, I think he's talking about for him. Yeah, because now he says like the tights just sweeten the deal. That's hilarious. All right.
Yeah. That's funny. But
we can call it a night.
We can call it a night on superhero tights.
Yeah,
that's real.
Good. That's
For
good.
real.
That's a good point to end on.
Jesus is the best superhero.
In a world where Steve wants to wear tights and be Batman.
No.
Good night.
Jesus saves.
Yeah. In a world
saves.
where Jesus saves, you can be saved too. Look into it.
Amen.
And believe.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
So if you want to sign us off, I'll hit the stop broadcast button.
All right. Hey, thanks guys for listening to the show. Sorry about all the problems. We definitely appreciate you tuning in. Tune in next week when we'll have all the stuff dialed in correctly. Next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on True Story Live and the Simulcast with Talking Doctrine. And we'll see you next week.